Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to take the old CJRB Pyrite and play a little game of absurd knife comparisons. All right, what are we talking about here? This is, to me, my favorite budget knife of the year. It's come out recently, 50 bucks, super fidgety. Although you do have to time that right, and that'll be one of the things I talk about. But many deployment models, you can use your fingernail, your thumb in the proper way, your reverse flick, and it has a killer button-based flip in and out. More out than in, I'll say. And I thought it'd be fun, based on some comments on the channel, to do what I'll call absurd knife comparisons. You get two people that comment on CJRB Pyrite videos. You get, well, there's obviously more, but there's three people. One that are just like, oh, that's awesome. The second one that's like, you are a criminal for peddling knives from China. And we won't go deep on that, but there's definitely those people out there that feel like people in the US shouldn't buy things from China. And then you get a third version, which is a really interesting one, which is you're making absurd comparison by comparing it to a more expensive knife, whether it's from $50 compared to this $150 Demko AD20.5, or getting compared to this $300 Tactile Knife Co., full titanium Magna Cut knife, this $400, it's $300 Devo Stout, this $950 Demko AD20.5 Timascus, or even this $1,500 Rockstead HIGO. At the end of the day, these are all knives. And technically what you can do with them is fairly similar, but how you interact with them and how they perform, both in terms of the actual cutting, the blade, the blade metal performance, steel performance, the fidgetiness, the enjoyment of using them, the reliability of the build, the fit and finish, those things all factor into why someone might buy one knife versus another. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to do some absurd knife comparisons with the CJRB Pyrite and say, what's our diminishing return by comparison? And it's really hard to quantify the price difference as if this was made in the US. So there's certainly just going to be the factor of made in China versus made in the US, which plays into things. But I'm going to go into a pretty good technical comparison that we'll just call absurd knife comparison. So I wanted to start, where do I want to start? I want to start with something that's more similar in price. So we'll start with this guy, the Wee Banter. Both made in China, one by Wee Knives Civivi, and one by CJRB Artisan Cutlery. And let's talk about some of the differences. So there is a G10 version of this that's actually very similar, kind of in that sense, it's more similar to this in a lot of ways. But let's compare them out a little bit just on size first. So the Wee Banter is a bit more of a compact package. The blade's a little shorter, the handle's much shorter. And then you have a liner lock. You have slab, or I don't know if there's a better word, just really a slab of G10 with a little inlaid liner in there, steel liner. That adds some rigidity to it. So it's a nice build. It's a good balanced knife. It's a thumb stud, just like the CJRB. I do like the thumb stud on here more, and I'll show you the difference. One person had a wonderful articulate comment to grow a pair because I commented on the pokiness and the pointiness of the CJRB. And look, here's my thing. It would cost CJRB less money to have that extra little bump there at the very end. There'd be less metal. It'd be probably easier to make if I had to guess. So that's a design flaw. I don't care what you call it, and I can certainly like deploy this knife over and over and over again without it being a problem, but it doesn't make it more comfortable because it's designed more poorly. It doesn't make me feel better about myself because I can tough it through there, or I have enough callus on my thumb or whatever, right? Like that's just a design flaw, period. Whereas I actually think the thumb stud here is really good. It not only engages your thumb really well and consistently, it's matte finish, so it's less slippery, and it doesn't have that pointiness on there. So you can really compare the difference here. Side by side, this is a much pointier thumb stud, and that to me is a design flaw. And just to further validate this, here's another one, not pointy. 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 So there are plenty out there that aren't as pointy as this. I'd say one of the ones that I think is closer to it would be like the Penguin's, a little pointy. It's not bad. It's not as bad as the CJRB, but it's a little pokey. Let me see, maybe this is bad. Let's take a look. Let's say not quite as bad, but it's not far off. It's maybe like 30% better. Oh, here's another one, not pointy. So yeah, there are plenty of thumb studs out there to validate that pointy thumb studs are not the business and not the way. This is the way. So anyways, that's like one of the few things I don't like about it. So the next thing I'll say is the detent on the Wii is better. And I don't know if it's like on purpose or what, but this one constantly bounces on me. And I don't know if, wait, let me do that correctly. Right, that bounces out of there quite a bit. Now every knife, if you hit it hard enough, is gonna bounce out of there. But like, this one's definitely better. And it manifests itself also during the action because it gives you a little better pop out on the action. It's not bad on this one. Detent's not terrible. But let's take this one aside and compare it to something I think does a better job of the fidgetiness is the Demko AD20.5. Now you're going from 50 to 100, 108 to 150. So you're getting up from double the price to triple the price. But, oops, sorry. Trying to do too many things at once here. Count how many times this thing bounces out. That was about 20 deployments. I think I counted 0. Okay, starting to see the difference, right? You're getting like 1 out of every 3 versus 0. And part of that is that you can see on the AD20.5, there's actually like a pretty strong spring that pulls it in, kind of like a Benchmade bug out. You have a spring based that gives you that last part of the detent. Now, some people call that not having a detent, and actually I've seen one comment that the guy really disliked that felt like the knife doesn't have a detent, and there's an argument there that there's not really like a stop based detent where there's like a pause and then it's either closed or open, which I understand some people may not resonate with this design. But the good thing is when you're fidgeting with it like that, there's a very natural, like it's much harder to do this. You have to like literally hold the button the whole way for it to actually pop out. It's a very natural way to fidget with it, whereas this one, like the button is just a little less predictable. So the lock's not quite as good as the Demko. Ooh, you know, there's one thing I forgot on this one too. For twice the price, you're also getting S35VN blade steel instead of ARPM9, I think it's called. RPM9. And some people think RPM9 is the shit, but it's not as good as S35VN. I don't care what you say. It's not a bad blade steel, don't get me wrong, but it's not as good. And I won't go into what makes great blade steels. That's a video for another day, and it's been done a million times, but S35EN is definitely a superior blade steel. Well, I wouldn't say definitely. From my perspective, what I look for is a superior blade steel. This is a great one, and you know, but that is part of the price difference here. What else? I still feel like this may end up going up. Now, I'm also saying the price that this is normally selling for, it is a 66 MSRP, but you can oftentimes get it for 49. I like the size on this one quite a bit, and the weight. It's probably a similar weight to this Rivalry Demko because it's got the steel scales. If you get it not steel, even though they're nicely milled out, they're quite a bit heavier. I don't know if I can get some good light in there right now. Got some pretty bad lighting situation going on today. You can maybe see it over here a little bit, how it's milled out. But weight, pretty similar. Pocket feels pretty similar. I have this as an updated pocket clip, so let me pull out one that's, you know, these are pretty similar. This one's got a better deep carry pocket clip out of the factory, but you know, some might argue they like to be able to grab this little guy to pull it out of their pocket, so for each their own. The lockup is really solid on this. I've not had any issues with lockup out of box. It's just been a dream in terms of the action, so that's really good. There's probably something to be said about if you're holding the knife just wrong, that this button could be depressed potentially by mistake, and you might cut your other knife. Just kidding. You know, this is definitely a consideration for some people. It's not, to me, something that's going to happen in any sort of normal use, choked up or not. Like, the chances of getting up there, maybe if you have really big fingers, you could wrap around and depress that, but the chances of getting onto that in any of the natural hold patterns are very low. Maybe here. Yeah, that's the one place where I could see potentially in a reverse grip, you can depress it by mistake. So that's the only thing I'll say about the button lock. I think the shark lock is the best lock out there, but you know, maybe I'm biased because I have like 30 plus Demkos. Looking to get that down to 10 to 15, trust me. It sounds good. It's got a really nice sound to it because it's a nice solid frame, or handle rather. So when it pops open, it has a pretty good sound. It does just kind of feel a little cheap. I feel like maybe like a slightly more quality pocket clip might make it feel a little better. These scales are nice and smooth and like kind of glassy, similar. It's probably the most similar to this that I have in the collection, where it's kind of glassy and really nice in the hand in a way. But this clip just kind of feels a little cheap to me, I think, for some reason. Just a little, it's a little puny. It's probably kind of a right fit for the knife in a way, but that is one of the things that kind of makes me feel like it's a little cheap. And hey, at 50 bucks, no shocker, right? And you can probably spend 10 bucks for another Chinese upgrade on it, and then you'll have a better pocket clip. I love the blade shape on it. I don't know about the grind. I know I tested this on the opening and unboxing, but see if I can find some paper to test it on a little bit here. Yeah, great edge right out of the factory. Super slicey, so that's awesome. It's a really good knife. All right, so let's take it to the next level. Versus the Demko, it's further illustrating, you know, at 3x the cost. Aside from, you know, this is the one thing, and that is pretty annoying to me that like it kind of ends up out of there a lot. So for me, this is still my daily carry, and I gotta say, I think that's a piece of it, is that doesn't quite do what I hope it would. Now, if you get your thumb off just at the right time, it will go in there, right? But you have to time it really well to do it consistently. So anyways, let's keep the ridiculous comparisons going. So I was talking about the the feel, and this is like a really good feel comparison to me, like it's probably the closest knife to knife feel comparison, is the Demko AD20.5 Damascus. And you actually have a pretty similar blade shape here. One's a clip point, one's a drop point, sure, but generally you're gonna get a similar utility out of them. There's a little bit of jumping on there. It could probably go up a little higher because you have this nice choke up point, but it's fine. I think it's fine. It's really good for this position. It's okay for this position. It kind of catches the very bottom of your thumb there. It's kind of a thin blade anyways, so it's like you're not going to get that much out of it, I feel like. But I really do like that forward choil on it, or call it a finger choil. The Demko also has it in a pretty effective way, but it's not quite even as good as this. You do give up some cutting edge on the CJRB for that, so you do have a little less cutting edge in total because of it. But a really similar format. And then when you start getting into this comparison, now you're going, wait a minute, I'm going to pay 15 times, 20 times more money for that versus that. Now it starts getting really hard to justify buying a different knife. And in the last of the absurd knife comparisons, we're going to pull out the the Rockstead HIGO II XCF, which stands for carbon fiber because it has this really impressive carbon fiber scale on it. And this is a $1,500 MSRP here. So now you're getting into a whole world of ludicrousy where you start going 50, 1,500. That is 30 times more expensive. Is it worth it? Is it a 30 times better knife? 30 times better. 30 times, I don't know. That's going to be a hard one to justify at that point. Now you get an amazing, amazing finish on the blade. It's obviously a different blade steel at this point. You're getting a very different fit and finish, a very different action. It's a phosphor bronze washer, so it's not like it's meant to be flipped open, but the smoothness of the deployment is definitely something I find myself reaching for a lot on the desk. And you got a better thumb stud, that's for sure. Not much of a better pocket clip, I'll say that. It's probably one of the worst parts of the HIGO is it's a pretty unimpressive pocket clip. This particular one has some wear on it too, which makes it even worse. You probably have a better pocket clip all around on this knife. So yeah, in the final of the absurd knife comparisons, that would be certainly a better feel in hand because it's this nice rounded scale. It's not a flat scale. So it's really designed for feeling amazing in hand. But man, they're two knives at the end of the day. They're two different, they're both a tool that's used for cutting stuff. And it's just interesting that as an industry, we have such divergent comparisons. In fact, I could even pull out something more ridiculous to compare against, which would be like a custom Demko that would cost you $2,000 at a over the table at a blade show or something like that. And now you start getting into a completely different size category as well. But I wanted to kind of at least stay in the general size category for this experiment, this thought experiment. You get definitely a better level of service with these. With warranty, you're able to just send them back in. If it ever dulls, you pay for shipping, I think, but you can send it back in. It's kind of like a lifetime investment as a knife. There is a big drawback on this amazing blade steel, which is that although it's super hard, 67 Rockwell hardness, you do have some volatility in the toughness, and this particular one has like a chip out of the tip because of that, which I bet if it was this blade steel wouldn't have happened, but you also couldn't keep a polish like that for as long with that blade steel because it would scratch and get worn out more and stuff, which is sort of what you need to make this blade steel finish how it is, if that's fair. So, laying it out again, 50, what else did I do? Thought I was going to compare it to this, but I forgot to. Call that 75 or 80, 100, 150. I forgot to compare it to this one too, but it was going to at 300, 950, and $1,500. They're all knives. They all serve, oh, you know what I compared it to this one, sorry, 300. They're all knives, they all cut things, but they all do it in a very different way. And if you look at the priority score that I talk about feel in the pocket, pocket clip. I talk about feel in hand, deployment. I talk about the blade lock, the blade steel. I talk about the value. There are many different elements that I look at in terms of what drives the overall user experience, and I guess what you'd call kind of like the ownership experience, which includes the financial impact and everything of owning one knife versus another. And here's an interesting spectrum of knives ranging from $50 up to $1,500 that one might own in order to satisfy your cutting needs. And they do it all in very different ways, for sure. None right or wrong at the end of the day. Putting your political views aside, putting your preferences aside, and trying to be as objective as possible. Any of these might meet your need better or worse than others, but they're all knives. And I can appreciate elements of everything along this spectrum, and it's why I collect them. So there's your food for thought for the day and your first absurd comparisons. And I think this may be a series of videos that I do where we absurdly compare knives to one another that are completely different. We'll see how it resonates. So please like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. And if you've seen some of my videos, feel free to suggest some absurd comparisons that I might do in future videos. So thanks for stopping by. We'll see you on the next one, and take care.